With the first pick in the 2017 NBA Draft, the Philadelphia 76ers select
Charles Tuggle, Lewis and Clark College.
Avid BMX biker, and now he loves to throw caution to the wind, and now he's going to have to be daring enough to try to lift the 76ers.
Hello world! Welcome back to the latest and greatest episode of My Friend Chuck. I am Mike Richman of the Oregonian OregonLive. With me, as always, my friend Chuck, Charles Tuggle of Lewis and Clark College. A high draft pick. What's up, man?
Oh, nada. Chilling in the swamp, getting muggy in the swamp, and working on a post-NBA draft hangover.
Did you celebrate your draft status?
Absolutely, excited to be drafted by any team and ready to make an impact on this podcast.
Yeah, your upside is tremendous. Your backside is nice too. Hey-o!
Seriously though, I did go to an NBA draft party last night.
Oh, really? How was it?
Oh, it was great. Great. Of course, only stayed until the 26th pick in the draft, but but it was good. We had representatives from all sorts of teams. Minnesota Timberwolves fans in the house, Spurs fans in the house, huge Bucks fans hosting the party.
Well, so a lot of losers. You were hanging out with losers.
Lakers fan in the house.
All losers. All fans of bad teams.
and a Georgetown basketball fan.
I guess the Spurs did make the Western Conference Finals and are like the best team of the last 50 years, so I take that back. But yeah, go Hoyas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into it. The Portland Trail Blazers, they had 3 picks going into the draft. Just give me your thoughts, Charles, and then we'll get into more detail.
Should I just on both the picks?
Let's start with Zach Collins. Blazers traded 15 and 20 to get Gonzaga center Zach Collins. So whatever that means.
Aggressive move up in the draft order for the Blazers, which they were reported to be interested in leading up to the draft. Honestly, don't know much about Zach Collins. Probably have watched him play 50, 60 minutes of basketball in the NCAA tournament.
I watched him play in the Final Four and in the national championship game. So that's my extent of my in-person scouting of him.
Mm-hmm. What I noticed watching in the tournament, looking back, was guy with good size, young fella, skilled.
Yeah, really skilled, really skilled.
And maybe has a feel for the game a little bit. Other than that, can't really say.
Does he excite you when you hear Zach Collins? When you see Woj and then your boy Mike G. Rich report that the Blazers are going Zach Collins, what'd you think?
It wasn't. I can't say for me it was an exciting pick, but again, I don't pay that close attention to NCAA ball, so I'm at this point in time, I'm not really familiar with a lot of the prospects beyond maybe just some of the cachet of the names that you see pop up in certain articles or whatever. But in terms of actually watching them or knowing much about their games, I'm admittedly a bit ignorant. So I guess it wasn't. That's just a caveat to my disappointment in a way. But he seems like a nice player, and obviously the Blazers are very interested in him and desired him and went after him.
So do you trust them?
Maybe. Maybe. I guess at this point, sure. They've done well with a few draft picks. Done bad with a few draft picks, as I've mentioned in the past. We'll see. Nice to have a young player that can maybe add a little bit of impact and fill in, and maybe that means there could be some outgoing players for the Blazers in the front court, considering that they also brought in another big man for the second pick.
Yeah, let's go to this. Let's go to the second pick, and then we could talk about overall impact, because I think that's the most intriguing part of sort of the decision making of Thursday night. 26, they got Caleb Swanigan, a formerly gigantic and now just big man from Purdue by way of Indianapolis. He's got a great story, a really great story. He spent the early part of his life in and out of low-income housing and homeless shelters, living with his mom and his father, who he had a close relationship with, but his father dealt with, he was addicted to drugs and just wasn't able to be a parent really early on in his life, and as mom struggled to take care of him and his siblings. And about when he was 12 or 13, he was adopted by a gentleman named Roosevelt Barnes, who was an NBA agent at the time. So you're talking about this giant kid with NBA dreams getting adopted by an agent, which was seen at the time as maybe a little bit shady, but it changed Caleb's life. He ended up morphing into Indiana Mr. Basketball and spent 2 years at Purdue, and now set to be an NBA player. What were your thoughts? I'm willing to wager you've never seen a minute of Caleb Swanigan play basketball, Charles.
No, I have actually.
Because you're a Big Ten man.
I wouldn't say that, but for those listeners who don't know, I'm from Indiana, so I have lots of high school friends, old friends from the state who are Purdue and Indiana University alums, so they're big watchers of Big Ten basketball. I get all my takes from them, really. But I've watched them maybe play a few games.
Oh, so I undersold you. So you've scouted my man.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that. But I've caught him just based off of sort of, IU Purdue games or other Big Ten games that I might have caught stretches of,
He's pretty good, huh? Or do you like him? What do you think?
Big man. He's a fighter. This is I just pulled up this tweet from last night from a friend of mine who went to Purdue University, and I quote, "You won't like anyone more hardworking, high IQ, and will only improve."
Yeah, he's kind of a Blazer in the comment section. I'm quoting the comment section here, so we've reached maybe a new low point or a new high point, depending on who you are. But he said, and this is like my favorite sort of like over-exaggeration about the draft, but he's Brian Grant's game and Zebo's body. So yeah,
that for just a second.
So yeah, he's basically going to be an incredible fan favorite either during his tenure like Brian Grant or 5 years after his tenure like Zebo. Nobody has improved their like perception with a fan base more than Zach Randolph. Blazer fans did not like Zebo.
Right.
I think you and I were the people who were most pro Zebo during his time here with the Blazers.
Yeah, but we caught him only in his last season, correct?
Yeah, he was gone by the end of the following year. That's correct.
The first season of my Trailblazers fandom was Zach Randolph's last season, Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge's first season.
Yeah, and so then he was gone, and obviously the Knicks and the Clippers stints didn't work out, and now he's found a home in Memphis, and he's turned into a model citizen and a really good guy, and you kind of see what NBA players are like when they grow up from being immature to a little bit of maturity and get the right situation, and people love Zebo.
Yeah, how are you not gonna like a little bit of a redemption story,
Yeah,
a little bit of a comeback story, and to root for a guy who makes a commitment in a new place and has done really well for himself in Memphis. Loved watching him, even as a Blazer on that terrible team that won 21 games or.
They were 21. Is that right? 21 and 61, and then 32 and 50. Yeah, that's right. And then 41 and 41.
Yeah, not a good game, but Zach Randolph always had a pleasing game to watch. Player, silky smooth jump shot, good footwork, nimble.
So in that same vein, I do think fans will find it easy to root for Swanigan. I think your friend is correct. I think Portland fans will really like him. He came out and worked out for the Blazers in the second week of June. I want to say June 13th. And I met him, and I really liked him in those sort of 7 minutes that I got to speak to him. I didn't get to talk to him one-on-one or have a real sort of not reporter-player conversation with him. But but he's smart, he's mature, he knew how to answer questions. He wasn't. He gave thoughtful responses and things like that. I thought one interesting thing that he shared during that. I'll share a story about sort of me looking for Caleb Swanigan as a young reporter. So I used to cover high school sports before I covered the Trailblazers, and I would go to these AAU tournaments, and I kind of did my own thing. I would say, hey, boss, I'm going to go to this AAU tournament. Here are the 5 prospects I'm going to have content based around. I was a multimedia journalist, so videos and photos and everything in the world. So here's everything I'm going to do. Here are the 5 prospects I'm going to go look at this AAU tournament. So I go there, and I get the 4 kids. And at the end of the night, I'm looking for this kid, Caleb Swanigan. I know he's supposed to be really big, and I know what team he plays for. I know what jersey number he plays for. Game starts. He's not in the game. And then at the end of the bench, there's a gentleman wearing whatever jersey he's supposed to be wearing. But I am convinced that Caleb Swanigan is the name of a big old white dude. So when I see Caleb Swanigan, who is a big person but not a white guy, on the bench, I'm like, that's not him. Which is sort of its own special type of maybe racism or maybe just confusion on my part. And so I went up to him after the game, and I said, hey, Caleb? And he's like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, no way! So I interviewed him, but I didn't do... I spent probably 90 minutes or whatever during an AAU game convincing myself that there was no way it was him and that I had missed out on the kid I was supposed to find. This was a while ago, so it was sort of pre...
Yeah. Do you think the confusion arose from his first name?
100%. Caleb, dude. I just did not think... I grew up with a bunch of, suburbia with a bunch of lanky Jewish kids named Caleb. I did not... I did not know any dudes from, like, from Fort Wayne, Indiana, or whatever it was. Indianapolis, Indiana. Black kids who were named Caleb. I just didn't know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's my Caleb Swanigan story. So I asked him I said, didn't you play an AAU tournament here? And he said he did. He played here when he was young, and I didn't tell him that story at the time. I'll tell him it later when we can talk one-on-one and see what he thinks. But he said he did, and then he said 2 years later, after that, he played in the Nike Hoops Summit, which is like a showcase for like the top high school players in the country. And then 2 years later, he was back in Portland for a workout. So he said that Portland was like a good way to measure his growth as a person, because every 2 years he would come to Portland and he was like in a better place each time. So I think that's interesting that now he's going to be back here on Monday for his introductory press conference, and he's in as good a place as you can be, which is a pro basketball player. Yeah.
Insightful comment there, Mike.
Yeah, well, hey, I told you.
National reporter following that story.
He told me that I told you it was a good interview. He helped me out there. That was the type of thing you need when you have a 7-minute post-workout interview with a 19-year-old or whatever. He's older than that. He's 21, I think, but still.
Yeah, that's a nice little arc, of development and growth.
Yeah, he was 360 pounds and like 6'2" in the 9th grade.
Yeah, and I find that unbelievable almost.
Yeah, well, he used to, apparently his thing is he used to crush desserts. There was a story in, I think it was ESPN, where when he first got adopted by Rosie Barnes, Rosie said, we're going to be up at, 5 a.m. to go do this workout. Or we got to be on the court at 6. So get up at 5, feed yourself, and we'll get out there. There's cereal and milk down in the downstairs. And he woke up, and Caleb had eaten the entire box of cereal and drank the whole gallon of milk prior to the workout, because he was an eater. The dude was an eater.
He just completed the gallon milk challenge. 1 hour, 1 gallon of milk.
Like it was nothing.
He had food though too. Maybe that's
an
important element to completing it.
Yeah, if you put cornflakes in there, it does not count.
Either way, what a feat.
Yeah, what a monster. Box. What a monster.
I dreamed of such things as a child, but could never actually accomplish them.
Well, you were probably only like 5'11", 104, so you weren't
$1.05.
Yeah, exactly. You were not eating that much food, man. Even if you wanted to. But so obviously his housing situation and sort of overcoming and being able to overcome that and persevere through that is really impressive. But the discipline at a young age to be shedding triple digits of weight, to know that you need to change your body to get somewhere. That's impressive. I think that speaks a lot to sort of what kind of person he is. Yeah.
No, he's got fan favorite marked all over him.
Yeah. And he he tried to go pro after his freshman year. He did the go to the NBA combine, talk, sort of gauge your stock thing, and I think it didn't work out for him. They said you're not going to get drafted, and he went back to college, and he was one of the best rebounders in the country, one of the best big men, the best player in the Big Ten, major college basketball, and I think he probably was by most projections, sort of fringe first round or early second round type of guy, and the Blazers made their move. And they added 2 bigs to their roster, and I think that's the big question, where the heck do these guys fit? And I guess we'll find out in Vegas, but what's your gut reaction, Charles? Where do you think he fits?
Well, I guess let's assess the depth chart really quick here for us. We got Yusuf Nurkic, Ed Davis. Would you consider him in the same sort of class here? Myers Leonard.
And Noah Vonleh. And Chief, who's still gonna play a lot of power forward.
Festus Ezeli, who's sure to be.
He's no, he's gone. He's gone. Festus not on the team. Yeah. He will. I would be surprised if Festus plays in the NBA again, but maybe. I know he's rehabbing right now in Sacramento, I believe. So we'll see. But
Adios, Festus.
Yeah, he's dealing with a serious knee injury or serious knee situation he's trying to come back from. But yeah, so it's Chief, Noah, Ed, Myers Leonard, obviously Yusuf, and then you have Zach Collins, and then you have Caleb Swanigan. Who do you see getting squeezed? We
almost have too many big bigs,
centers.
How well can these guys move on the perimeter? How well can these guys switch onto the 4 or the 3 position? Can Zach Collins, does he have this sort of mobility? I have no idea.
The last night Neil Olshey says he sees him playing behind Nurk and then in certain matchups playing next to him.
But we too many big bigs,
Right, and we didn't see a lot of Nurk and Myers last year. We didn't see any of Nurk and Ed. And the Myers and Ed combo that 2 years ago was a favorite of Terry Stotts basically didn't exist in the rotation last year. So we're talking about a lot of guys, and I know Caleb Swanigan is not quite 6'9". I think he measured 6'8.5" at the combine. But in my eyes, he's a center because he
doesn't have the skills to.
Yeah, he's not going to chase around a stretch 4.
Right.
I
feel like we needed some more quality depth on the wing a little bit.
Agreed. I thought the Blazers' weaknesses were at 3 and 4, personally.
And a versatile 4 is what I really wanted. And I don't know if... I guess from what I've seen of Zach Collins, he seems to be perhaps compatible with Nurkic, you think? Does he have that range on
Well, he made threes in college. He made 10 of 21 threes in college. So he has, and he was an okay free throw shooter, 75%. So he has the sort of skills to be a guy who does stretch his range, but he's not sort of naturally a chucker. He's not a 3-point shooter per se, but he does have shooting touch. So
he's 7 feet. Whoa.
7 feet 230. Yeah, he's a center. He's probably a center in the league.
I don't recall him being that tall watching him. Damn.
Yeah. Well, he played with. I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah,
but
the Polish fellow.
The giant Polish dude. So anybody's going to look smaller next to that giant Polish dude. That's just how it works.
Yeah, Karnowski.
Premislav Karnowski.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is an interesting sort of conundrum here. Surely there's maybe a player that's shipping out, you think, or...
Yeah, either shipping out or Caleb Swanigan spends a whole year in development, or or Ed gets pinched a little bit, or, and I think this is really unlikely, but I guess it should be a scenario that's considered, is that Chief plays more 3. But they committed pretty much wholeheartedly over the last 100 regular season games, all of last year and the last 20 of the previous season, to playing him at power forward. So I think that's, I think that I'm just throwing it out there because it is a scenario, although I think it has a less than 2% chance of being likely. I think the Blazers are much more likely to go smaller than they are to go bigger. So yeah, I think the question is, and I think what you're left with coming away from draft night is like, where do these two fit? And Collins is like, you pick a guy at 10, you want him to play, right? You want he needs minutes. 26, you can see Swanigan learning from the end of the bench. I don't think that's unlikely that that he would see very few minutes and sort of learn as a end of the bench player and as an insurance policy type thing. But Zach Collins strikes me as someone who they want to get into the rotation and play, which means that maybe Ed Davis and Myers Leonard are behind him at some point in the pecking order. Or maybe he plays a lot of minutes next to Ed Davis and Myers doesn't play.
Yeah, Myers can't be in good favors at this point in time, I feel like, both with the fan base and maybe with the coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I think his...
Just in terms of what he's shown, I don't mean to say anything about Leonard himself, of course.
Right. No, I mean, it's Terry and him who seem to not... you could tell in Myers' exit interview that he was trying to say politely that he felt like he didn't get enough chance to play, or he didn't get a long enough leash to learn and make mistakes. And that's a criticism in his way of saying the coaching staff, Terry Stotts, didn't give me enough leeway to play. Not I mean, heck, Neil Olshey gave him $40 million over 4 years.
Yeah.
Neil Olshey changed his dang life, so he's gonna end up paying him $50 million over the course of nine seasons in the NBA, or 8 seasons in the NBA. That's good. It's a nice little chunk of change. So yeah, I do think that the big question, and I think Summer League will help us kind of figure out which guys are ready to contribute. But assuming perfect health, it seems like the Blazers have a log jam in the front court that there is no obvious answer for. Obviously, they had Festus Ezeli on the team last year, so they were going into the season thinking that 5 guys could play. And I also think there's a situation where we haven't even talked about it, that Noah, like who they've kind of squeezed into the rotation and kind of looked like a player at the end of the year. He could get squeezed out. So I don't know. It's I think there's a lot of questions that we cannot figure out totally just yet. And we won't know. I don't think we'll even know until a week into the regular season at least. Yeah.
It is a bit interesting that they went with 2 bigs, when I feel like they were clearly in need of a wing player, and maybe they probably wanted a big player also, obviously.
I mean, to hear Olshey tell it, he wanted Zach Collins specifically more than anything else.
Yeah, and maybe they just didn't like the depth of some of the wing players that were going to be available, considering the trade that they needed to make to acquire Collins.
Right. I know you don't make like a draft board, but when you heard Swanigan's name announced at this draft party, were people surprised? Were they like, who the heck? What do we think the reaction was?
I would say positive, considering that sort of late in the first round.
Right.
Nothing. I didn't notice any beaming enthusiasm, but no sort of shade was thrown as well.
Well, you know how I know you don't live in Oregon?
How is that? Did people want Jordan Bell?
They wanted Jordan Bell so bad.
He's the kid from Oregon.
Yeah.
University of Oregon.
And he's going to win a championship. Let's go ahead and congratulate you. Congratulations, Jordan Bell. Hope now would be a great time to learn what size your finger is, because you play for the Golden State Warriors. And
so would you say that the reception out in the Portland area is a bit cynical or negative regards to Swanigan?
You know what? I don't think a ton of Blazers fans who are also Duck fans, I should make that clear, like the double-edged. I think they wanted Bell at 26 just because a lot of mock drafts had him there. He worked out for the Blazers. He was just projected to go in that range. So like when it got there and he's on the board and there aren't a ton of other great options, then it starts to be like, hey, this is, it was meant to be. How perfect is this? And then like the surprise was more than anything what caught them off guard. Like, oh, and then, Jordan Bell dropped. He thought he was going to go no later than 31 to the Atlanta Hawks, but then the Hawks trade away that pick, and I think his whole situation change, and he dropped all the way to 38. And then the Bulls, who are just, we could talk about them in a second, during their rebuild, decide to sell a second-round pick to the defending champs. I think it's a good fit for him, but I do think. Yeah,
that was just for sort of cash, wasn't it?
They used the max amount of cash you're allowed to spend, $3.5 million. So the Bulls basically just cheaped out on him to get $3.5 million to sell a second-round pick in a rebuild in the midst of a rebuild.
And does Jordan Bell then come into Golden State with no set sort of contract to begin negotiations with the team?
There's only a minimum you have to offer second-round picks, but there's no maximum or no necessarily length. Usually the way teams do it is like a fully guaranteed first year with partial guarantees over the next years, or fully non-guaranteed each year after that. And they can offer you up to a 4-year deal, which is the Sam Hinkie special, which is a fully non-guaranteed 4-year deal with someone.
Rest in peace, Hinkie.
He died.
You changed the game.
He died for our sins.
Long live he.
Oh God! Maybe soon to run the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sam Hinkie.
Who knows? He's sure to be back. Yeah. Yeah, I guess good move from the Warriors to pick this guy up. This Bell kid, that is.
Yeah, I mean he fits what they need to do. Like someone who has really basically no offense and is a really like interested, like committed and versatile defender. He's probably going to play a lot of center for them, even though he's about 6'7.5" in the combine. But I mean, listen, they won a They just won a championship by making JaVale McGee look like one of the best there ever was.
With the way they play, like he's going to be playing in the finals next year. He'll get like 20 minutes in the finals.
Yeah, he's going to he's going to outplay Tristan Thompson in game 2.
Yeah, shit. Pat McCaw got huge minutes in the finals.
Yeah, I mean...
No disrespect to him. He's obviously got a little game to him.
Yeah, but he was, again, a second-round pick, and they, they just fill out the roster on the margins with how much talent they have. So, yeah, a good situation for him. I guess I understand why Blazer fans are pissed. I understand the basis of it. I don't necessarily agree one way or another. But...
What about how are Blazers fans out there reacting to Zach Collins? Yeah, because he's local in a sense. Since
I've seen mixed reviews. There are these like Pac-12 fans who think that the West Coast Conference is a high school league, and so anything you do in the West Coast Conference doesn't really count because you're playing against lesser competition and yada yada yada. But I mean, Zach Collins made his money in the NCAA tournament. He didn't, To hear Neil O'Shea tell it, Neil saw him in January and said, "Yep, this kid's a top 10 pick. We want him. He's our number one guy." And then he balled out in March, and everyone else found out.
Interesting.
I must say I don't necessarily believe that, but
yeah, even if that is true, that could say big things about his talents as an evaluator. Neil O'Shea's, that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think other than
if he turns out to be just another Myers Leonard or something.
Exactly. I think the Myers Leonard pick is the only pick where you say, well, Neil, you've kind of messed this up. Like, obviously he overpaid Alan Crabb, but Alan Crabb is a contributing, top 8 player in most NBA rotations. He's just not paid like it. He's paid like he's a
correct
very good starter. So like, I think Neil nailed the draft. He just blew the second part of that transaction, maybe. Were there any other sort of teams that you thought did well? Any teams you like? Any? Obviously, the Jimmy Butler trade is probably the biggest news, or the not Paul George trade is probably the biggest news from draft night. Oh, I guess did you think the Blazers should get in on the Paul George sweepstakes?
Yeah, of course, but I knew that was never really feasible.
Okay, good. But I mean, why not, right?
Of course, Paul George. I think Paul George is a terrific player. I think he's a top 10 player in the league for sure. When healthy.
I think
that broken leg was a terrible sort of detour for his career. But he's back to form, man. He's a great player. It took him a little bit there to get back, but
he looked incredible last year.
Yeah, he's one of the top two-way players in the league. Really, you got healthy. You got to put him aside players like Kawhi Leonard, below Kawhi Leonard, of course, but close by.
I'd rather have Paul George and Jimmy Butler personally.
Me too. Paul George is longer, and I don't know. I feel like how the Bulls season went this past year, which was just an absolute nightmare, and they're really like that franchise is in tough shape for a number of reasons.
Oh, you mean a really poorly run and poorly conceived roster didn't work out?
Gosh, so many failures over there. But how that all sort of shook out, I didn't feel like Jimmy Butler came out of that very well.
Right.
Even them like limping kind of into the playoffs and giving the Celtics a scare for winning the first two games. I don't know. There seemed to be bad vibes and sort of culture coming out from that club and that locker room. And to me, I'm always looking for things like leadership and whatnot to clubs and their cultures and how they can succeed. And it didn't seem to be there. And I feel like you got to put that a little bit on Jimmy Butler because he's the prime star of that team.
I mean, I've heard from people who cover the Bulls that he's kind of a pain in the butt. It's sort of the unspoken thing about.
I like that player a lot, man. I liked him a lot early on. I think he worked really hard and improved a whole lot. He's another great two-way player.
Oh yeah, that's why I think he's in the conversation with sort of the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard.
But maybe Thibodeau brings the best out of Jimmy Butler.
He's going to do to him is he's going to play him 47.5 minutes a night.
Well, that's a fact. I mean, that's an absolute fact.
I was just talking with my dude Paul Moses on Twitter, and he said that like the good thing about the Jimmy Butler trade is now the Wolves won't have to worry about getting a third wing because Andrew Wiggins and Jimmy Butler will play every minute of every game.
Yeah, right.
So it just saves them a roster spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, please, such a short little rotation.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the Timberwolves came out pretty well from that. They got a nice looking core right now. Karl-Anthony Towns, who's a great young player, and Andrew Wiggins, who's a great supporting young player.
I think
Jimmy
they
Butler's
got
in his prime, near his prime, so I think that looks pretty good for them right now.
Yeah, I think they look good. Getting back to the Paul George to the Blazers sweepstakes, Neil Olshey kind of addressed it in his own cryptic way, but he's basically saying that Dame and CJ have not only have they tweeted incessantly about bringing Paul George to the Blazers, which I think is hilarious and its own sort of special thing.
They have done that. I've noticed that for sure.
It's pretty cool if you're a fan to see like how openly honest they are. And I guarantee if Dame has said it publicly, he said it privately too. He's just that kind of guy. He's not one to make his show on Twitter and not say it to your face. He's pretty much.
He's a straight shooter.
Yeah, I don't know CJ well enough to say that he would necessarily do that. I don't know his relationship with Neil either. I should say well enough, but I know Dame definitely has said to Neil, "I want go get a star."
Yeah, top players.
Exactly, and I wrote this last night that Neil basically says you can't go all in to appease the fans or a player for one season and then end up taking two steps back. And basically, here's how the math works on it. Say they trade Paul George and they get rid of Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu and all 3 first-round picks. That's like an underwhelming deal, but Indiana's in a pinch, whatever. That's what they do. Because I just can't see a situation where you send Alan Crabb to the Pacers and the rebuild starts by paying Alan Crabb $19 million. It just doesn't make sense to me. So then you get Paul George for a year. Maybe there's a scenario where Dame and CJ are so good with him that he decides to stay. But maybe there's a situation where he says, "I want to play for the Lakers. I want to be the man in LA because there's no better gig in the world than being the man who plays for the Lakers." He leaves anyway. So now here are the Blazers they've sacrificed their chance to get 2 rookies in a pretty darn good draft, 2 or 3 rookies in a pretty darn good draft. They've gotten rid of Aminu and Harkless, who are on good contracts, and they're still $100 million deep with all the money that they have guaranteed to Crabb and Turner and Dame and CJ, and they still have to sign Nurkic and Noah Vonleh, so they're up against the cap. They've lost their tradable assets. They've lost 2 good players. They've lost Paul George for a season, and their cap situation is still a mess. So I think there was real risk involved, even if in going all in for a Paul George type player, and for like the Porzingis front, I just don't think the Blazers had an asset to even have their phone calls answered.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I completely agree with you there. From the front office perspective, of course, it's a huge risk.
Yeah, exactly. And Neil Olshey,
I'm in that position. I'm probably not ultimately making that deal.
Yeah, and Neil Olshey.
As a fan, a fan of Paul George, I'd be like, that'd be cool to watch him play with the Blazers
yeah.
for a year.
Hard to criticize Dame and CJ or any Blazer fan who says, let's go get Paul George. You live for the moment, get it. Your window is always now. So, and we were talking about this text message. Say a team, the Blazers roll out a team next year that is Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Paul George, let's say Noah Vonleh, and Yusuf Nurkic, or Ed Davis and Yusuf Nurkic, whoever you want to start at power forward. Is that team favored in a series? Is that team favored in a home game against the Warriors in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals?
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that team doesn't even get to the Western Conference Finals.
You don't think? You think they lose?
Who knows? I mean, I don't know how that
but
team
there's,
would like
but there's
to
no
play.
There's no guarantee, and there's not a lot of depth. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Fun for sort of, fantasies in the midsummer NBA fan's life when there's no basketball to be watched. But yeah, probably not the most prudent decision ultimately for the Trailblazers franchise.
But man, would it be fun?
Oh yeah, that offense would have a lot of firepower.
And and also just to address a question that hasn't been asked, but to the Blazers fan base that says, if Dame and CJ really want a star player and you don't go get him, then what are they going to do? Well, they're signed up until the end of the 2019-2020 season, so they're going to chill and cash those checks. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, they're Blazers for their contracts. And then they'll meet those contracts. They're productive players.
Totally, and I don't think this will change. Dame will. He's sort of loyal to a fault. He will, if you are wearing black and red, he will roll into battle with you, and he will do what he does. And
that's a good way to interesting way to put it. Loyal to a fault. It's like, this might sound crazy, but his loyalty could cost him like a chance at like an NBA ring.
Oh yeah, he's
you know what I mean, like career-wise,
He's openly said to me and to the Twitter masses, like I wrote a story about it last year, that he very, very honestly wants to be a Blazer for his entire career. He sees that as something that is like sort of could be part of his legacy, and it appeals to him and all that.
Yeah.
And it's hard to win a championship if you don't. It's hard to win a championship if you don't change teams, because pretty much the same laundry keeps winning championships. It's how it's always worked. Yeah. Obviously, there is the Warriors model that says you can draft and build and yada yada yada, and they have proved it. But like, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, no, that was a master stroke of acumen and luck in a lot of ways with the
luck and timing and everything. Everything fell together for them to add Kevin Durant. And I think if they don't have Kevin Durant, then are they still maybe, champs 2 out of 3 years, 3 straight finals? Yeah, maybe. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that's still a damn good team.
Yeah. But it's
one of the best I ever seen before they even added Kevin Durant.
Right, exactly. One of the best teams in the history of the league prior to adding Kevin Durant. But it wouldn't be like so. The rest of the league wouldn't be looking like we can't catch them, And I think that's sort of the vibe that you're getting from a lot of GMs is like, or I'm getting. You probably don't talk to too many.
Nope. Who's the Wizards GM, real quick?
Who is the Wizards GM?
Do you know?
No, I was gonna say one, but I think I might be wrong. Oh, it is. It's Grunfeld still. Yeah, I was gonna say Ernie Grunfeld, but I didn't want to be wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna find his secretary's like email or something. I'll send a message. Try to get a meeting with Grunfeld. Try to get a beer with them. I'll get my own GM source here.
Nice.
To return to your point though.
There's just I think the feeling around GMs is is you either put all your chips on the table and you say, here we go, we're going to push and try to challenge Golden State, which is what I think Daryl Morey is going to do in Houston. He's going to say, James Harden is only going to be one of the best players in the NBA for another 3 seasons. 4 seasons. Let's make sure we are a championship contender for 4 seasons. I think the Spurs are going to do the same thing. Obviously, whatever team LeBron James is on now, the Cavs, and then the Hornets, and then the Lakers. And then the Kings, which as he just hops from team to team. At the end of his career,
the resuscitator.
But I think there are 4 or 5 teams who are going to say, let's do it, let's load up, let's chase these guys, and then there are a bunch of teams that say we have to start gauging what a successful season looks like to us, sans a championship, because we probably can't win a championship.
Yes, yeah. For a lot of teams, there's probably an adjustment of expectations, at least in the sort of immediate future. And that's really rough. It's kind of an interesting sort of conversation or thought to have about, even for fans, not outside of GMs trying to build that, whose job is also not only to win games, but to sort of placate fans as well. And these things are associated with winning anyways, of course. But getting star players, even if you're not winning championships, I feel like still matters, right? To fill seats and to sell jerseys. And to give the fans something to watch or something to cheer for.
To be responsible about what you're supposed to do your job. You want to create... You can't... If everyone tanks, then tanking isn't as valuable. It's... Mm-hmm. So, you have to...
It's an interesting time for the NBA, man.
It is.
It's weird. There is a strange sort of malaise, I feel like, following the Warriors' basically perfect basketball season and sort of perfect basketball machine. And I feel like a lot of fans are like, what is this? No one else can compete. You have Adam Silver sort of disparaging the remarks or sort of attacks on parity in the league right now, almost in sort of a laughing way.
Dude.
When I feel like that's a serious concern, and people are still going to tune in, of course, but it is odd sort of feeling over the league right now that they're such a perfect franchise.
I mean, it had a tangible effect on the league. It had a tangible effect on everyone in the league because the playoff revenue was so far down because the Cavs basically swept through the East and the Warriors literally swept through the West. It was the fewest games that were in a playoff series since it had gone to 7 games, or since we'd gone to 7 games in the first round. The playoff revenue was down, and it caused the projection for next year's salary cap to go down by $2 million, which affects max contracts. It affects how much people can spend. It affects where the tax line is, and so how much people are willing to spend sort of on the medium range guys to fill out their roster if they're tax teams like the Portland Trail Blazers. The Warriors' excellence, which I was pretty in defense of, actually has real potentially detrimental effects on the league. Adam Silver can, crawl out the crypts like he's from...
he was in spin mode in that moment.
Yeah, he can do whatever, he can say whatever he wants, but I do think that at some point, the lack of parity will be an actual problem that the league is as mad about as they were, as they, because they'll say, hey, it's costing us money. But I will say this: if the Warriors keep everybody together, because they've got a busy summer and everybody's coming back. Listen, I know that it'd be fun if they didn't, but the Warriors are going to do this little thing that players get to do, which is called colluding, and they are going to collude, and they are going to make sure that everyone makes a reasonable amount of money, and they keep the team together, and it works out. And they're going to do them.
Oh, yeah. This is a dynasty in the making.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't call it a dynasty yet, but it's a dynasty close to completion.
And when they come back, and they bring Iggy, and they bring KD, and they bring Steph back, and they got everybody locked in for multiple seasons, because that's what they're going to do this summer. They did not meet in the Hamptons and talk about winning one championship. They talked about winning several. They're going to do it. At some point, how much money it costs the Warriors to pay everyone and be over the tax will outweigh the value of championships. Bobby Marks of Yahoo projected it over the next 4 years. If they bring everybody back, it would cost them over $1 billion in salary and taxes.
Over the next 4 years?
Over the next 4 seasons. Over $1 billion in salary and taxes. There is no amount of money they can make to make that worth it.
Yeah. That's a pretty big number. I have no idea what sort of revenues even.
Well, they don't.
Here's one of the publicly available information.
I think the overall pie is available, but the Warriors do not have to show how much money they make, like in their building each night or whatever. They don't have to be on ticket sales. They don't have to like show how much money they make. And the Warriors don't own their building, which I think is a sort of minute or sort of like minutia, but it's an important thing. If they own their building, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on it, and they could just jack up the prices. And they're not beholden to someone, but they are paying rent. They are renting the building, so that also is going to work against them. And, I don't know what their TV situation is, but maybe they can re-up on a massive TV deal and make it happen for them. But otherwise, I do think there is a certain point 2 years down the road where they got to get rid of one of the sort of Hamptons 5, and that one person is named Klay Thompson.
Yeah. I wonder if he would be eager to, at a certain point, to leave and try to be a big gun on another team. I believe,
especially if they've won 3. Especially if they've won 3 championships, it's like what at that point, like what else do you have to prove other than like I could do this on my own?
Exactly. You've accomplished so much in your career already, and he's been pretty consistent in his career as well. I feel like he quickly sort of arose to his kind of elite level now, and he's maintained that since. Almost like from last year to this year, almost with like spooky similarity. Even though he's had a few little drought moments, but shooters have those.
Yeah, I mean, he scored 60 points in 29 minutes, so he did it all in one night.
Yeah, just build an offense around him and just chucking, and he's gonna put up mega numbers.
Oh, I know, and he's such a smart and committed defender that I feel like he could be an ace somewhere. I'm not sure he could be an ace on a team that wins a championship, but I think he could be a number 1 on a pretty darn good team.
Yeah, and even then, the Warriors are still looking like just a supreme-looking basketball
Hell
team.
Yeah. Take Klay Thompson away, and they're still the favorites to win the title.
So which leads us back to the original sort of point, which is immediate future for a lot of franchises and their fans is looking a little gloomy,
So yeah, in that vein, do you think the Blazers did the right thing by not going all in and kind of getting to, a 19 and a 20-year-old and being patient? I mean, regardless of if these picks pan out, do you think that just the approach, the methodology was correct?
I don't know. I guess I would have hoped this summer that they would have been more aggressive to acquire a veteran instant impact player.
I think that's fair.
Paul Millsap.
Yep, but they'd have to clear cap for Paul Millsap. He's a free agent. You're
right, and that leads back to sort of previous decisions from the summer before, clogging up the Blazers' sort of salary roll.
Yeah, all summer 16, to quote Aubrey Drake Graham, that is going to loom large in sort of how the world and all of us view the Blazers and this sort of like the Damian Lillard era, I think, because in the summer of 2016 they decided to pay everyone, and it's going to have effects for a long time. And Neil Olshey insists that everyone in the front office knew at the time the implications of those salaries, and they had a plan, and yada yada yada, and every franchise, including the Blazers, plans 2 and 3 and 4 years out and all this stuff. But like, I don't know. If they are as good for a season as they were with Nurkic, those 20 games, if they're like one of the 5 best teams in the West, it doesn't look as bad for them to be this expensive. But if they struggle again right away, it's going to look like these 2 off seasons are just going to look like a mess, no matter how good Zach Collins is.
Yeah, and maybe even deep down in me, my fantasy a bit for the summer was just desperately trying to shed some of these big contracts at like whatever cost, in a way, to even the immediate sort of ability for the team to perform.
I know.
You know what I mean? I'm being really pessimistic right now, but because even to see a whole season here with Nurkic included in the team, maybe offense tweaked a little bit to get a lot out of Nurkic and the other sort of members of the roster, depending on how they shake out. Even if I'm being really optimistic and hopeful, I don't even know how good that team can be.
Well, a lot of it depends on how the West shakes out. Like if the Clippers implode, then that's a spot opened up. If Gordon Hayward heads east, that's a spot opens up. So then all of a sudden there's this sort of, obviously the Wolves are going to be better next year, but there all of a sudden could be that two teams that were right in the middle of the pack 4-5 range that are out of it. Mm-hmm. And the Blazers could sort of fill that void.
There are big names that are sort of murking around, I feel like, in the NBA landscape right now. What's Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Paul George. Surely there's something to come from him, right? Who knows? Maybe opportunities rise to move up in the conference, but it's still, I cannot get the sort of Warriors out of my.
And nobody can.
Vision,
I think that's the story for everybody. Honestly, is that the Warriors are this good, and
their excellence has even made me resent them in a way.
I know, because
before Durant, they really played some of the most beautiful basketball I've ever seen, and I have so much respect, and it's like a part of the reason why I love the game. They personified that, and then they get Durant and just outdo that in a way, and now I'm just grumpy and upset that they just have been so damn good. It's an odd feeling, actually.
I know, and I was stunned in the playoffs, particularly in the finals, how much they seemed to need Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
How much Kevin Durant's excellence kind of saved them a couple times, particularly in Game 3.
Right. To sort of contrast that a little bit, I feel like there were times when I could hardly even sort of recognize Kevin Durant standing out because his just sort of role and placement in the Warriors system was just so fluid, that he's not dominating the ball with these crazy sort of dribbles and ISOs like he was in OKC. That even in his excellence, it's not always like he was omnipresent. And I think that speaks a lot to just how good the team is as a whole, even as they still needed him to lead them. And that was a great finals.
Steph Curry averaged 29, 8, and 7, and he was the third best player in the finals.
Yeah, LeBron was incredible that finals as well. So that speaks a lot to how easy sort of KD made it look.
Yeah. Oh man, he was great. And I think I think the turmoil that you see with the Cavs just speaks to how good the Warriors are, because if the Cavs had run it back, or at least made it close, I don't think that you'd see David Griffin get fired and you see this kind of panic. I think you say, man, we were really close. Let's give it a shot. Let's go for round 4. We'll even it up 2-2. But the Warriors took it to another level. They whooped up on the second best team in the league.
Absolutely. Case closed, Here's looking up for the Blazers in 2017, 2018, but the Warriors loom large.
Yeah, but the Blazers could have a really successful season by making the Western Conference Finals, or even a convincing run into round 2 of the playoffs. I don't think.
Yeah, let's end it on an optimistic note. Even stylistically, I think they could be a fun team to watch. Inside outside game. When things have gone so small recently, it's nice to see some good old-fashioned post play mix out with Dame and CJ's perimeter sort of just prowess.
Yeah, I think the Blazers are one of those teams, they weren't good enough last season to say if they aren't championship level or if they aren't Western Conference Finals level, then they had a bust season. They're still in the taking incremental steps sort of range of
Sure.
They're obviously priced to be really good. The salaries, just how much everyone gets paid kind of distorts the way you got to think about the team. And I think that's fair. I think that's in a league where salary matters and an impact of how much impact one player can have, being irresponsible playing one other player is a big deal. But the Blazers, if they get to say they're 4th in the West and they, take the Warriors to 6 competitive games in the second round of the playoffs, that's you got to say that's a good season. It's going to end sorely another loss to the Warriors, another reminder of how far away you are from a championship. But I think you got to, we were talking about, you got to recalibrate what success means, and Portland can have. There are plenty of ways for the Blazers to have a good season that doesn't end with them getting a trophy.
Right. I completely agree with you there. Adjust expectations a little bit. I feel like that can be heartbreaking and almost sort of anathema to sports fans, but maybe a healthy thing to do and to get the most out of what's going to be an interesting and exciting season. Yeah.
So Blazers aren't going to do anything in free agency. They might make some trades in July. You never know. They might make some trades in July, but they don't have any. They only have the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is about $5 million, and they have a full roster. So if they add someone, you can kiss Pat Connaughton goodbye. Pat will always love you, Patty Fastball. Tim Quarterman's probably not on the roster. I think we'll find that out in July, but I think the tea leaves say that the addition of 2 rookies means he is gone. Tim, we hardly knew ye. I mean, like literally, hardly knew you. Spoke to you 4 times.
We wish you well, Tim.
So I don't think July is going to be super busy for the Blazers, but I do think July has like we were just talking about, July has a really big impact on where they're going to be because the West may look very different next year, except for the team that's in the Bay Area.
Yes, sir.
Charles, congratulations on your draft selection. Can't wait to see you at Summer League. And we'll do one of these soon. Maybe we'll do a Summer League edition. Summer League starts July 7th for the Blazers. Blazers play July 8th. So maybe we'll pop back on in 2 weeks, unless some news breaks, and then me and Charles will be back on here talking to you. If you like what you hear or you want to subscribe, please do. Just search My Friend Chuck on iTunes. We're also on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. And please leave us a review. That helps us, helps other people who are looking for podcasts get found. It helps us sort of rise up the rankings and just helps more listeners end up making their way here. If you want to follow Charles on Twitter, he is at MCHelenarles, and he's over 200 followers now, so he's pretty important. He is pretty much America's premier social media guru.
Top draft pick. I'm on the up and up.
Yeah, this is it. Get in on the ground floor because his stock is skyrocketing. This is your chance to say I knew him when. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Mike G. Rich. You can find my work and all my colleague stuff at OregonLive.com/Blazers. I got scouting reports of the newest rookies. I got an explanation of how the Blazers approach draft night. We got introductory press conferences coming on Monday. We got all your sweet, sweet content, so sink your teeth into it. It's juicy and delicious. And enjoy your summer, guys. Enjoy your summer. The NBA offseason is sometimes more fun than the NBA regular season, so this time of the year is crazy and wild. Enjoy it. Thank you for listening. Charles, I will talk to you soon, my man.
Yeah, wear your sunscreen, folks.